truly a pleasure to be back before you after a number of years of not being gone. Obviously, I can't get Greater Minnesota out of my blood. I live in St. Paul, but Greater Minnesota still holds a special place in my heart, especially development and redevelopment issues. So it's exciting to be back here today and working with Tim, and I know how hard the staff is working. I don't know that I can follow up with as many jokes as Michael had, but I'll do my best to keep you entertained. So just to begin, there are a couple of quick things I want to mention to you. I am here today again on behalf of Minnesota Brownfields, and we actually do these workshops through the Technical Assistance to Brownfields program, which is run out of Kansas State University. So I'm kind of the third string quarterback today. Normally we have somebody from Kansas State who does what I'm going to present, and if it's not me, then it's Martha Faust, who's actually the executive director, but today it's me, so bear with me on this stuff. But the Technical Assistance to Brownfields program is free. So they wanted me to emphasize and make sure that you all understand that if you have a brownfield, which we'll get to in a second, that there are free resources out there. So to go along with some other funding sources that are available, there is stuff that you can get for free. But the other items that I want to talk today about are just to introduce you to what a brownfield is, if you're not familiar with that concept, give you a quick overview of the redevelopment process and some funding options that are out there. And of course, Meredith and Shauna will talk more specifically about what's available from the state. So, sorry, I'm not used to these presentations. Here we go. So the TAD program at Kansas State University actually services a number of states across the state. We're in Minnesota, as you can see, and we're part of Region 5. So they have a limited staff, which is why they're obviously not here today. They're doing another workshop in Wisconsin as well. So, but it's a large, well-run program, and there are a number of resources on your table related to what they provide. So we'll talk more about them as we go through the process today. And real quickly, Minnesota Brownfields is a group of organizations that are interested in promoting education, research, and partnership to clean up these properties across the state. And it's made up of government agencies, nonprofits, engineering firms, and contractors who kind of share that common interest. And like the coalition, we'll do some lobbying or other educational efforts to really promote the redevelopment of our communities across the state. And we've been around since 2006. All right, brownfields. Brownfields are not Superfund sites. They are sites that do have contamination, or perhaps even more importantly, have the stigma of contamination. They may or may not be that contaminated, but because they look contaminated, they're holding back the redevelopment in communities. Let's look through some. This is the federal definition. You can skip that. You get to the fun pictures. Can you see anything in this picture that might make it a potential brownfield? There's something leaking out of the big canister for one. But it looks pretty dilapidated, and it's going to be pretty hard to attract any economic development to that site without doing something to clean that up. This is also a brownfield, purely by definition being brown. But if this property ever turns from being an agricultural use to some other commercial, industrial, or residential use, it also has the potential to be what is defined federally as a brownfield because of the pesticides, herbicides, or even if there was a railroad track running alongside of it, whatever kind of came off that train over the years may have gone in and contaminated that soil. So as you can see, it's pretty much any property has the potential, unfortunately, to be a brownfield. This one is pretty obvious, former welding site. Again, who knows what else is contiguous adjacent to that property. This is kind of a fun one, a drive-in. The one that I didn't realize was a brownfield, but those speakers have mercury in them. So that right there makes this a potential brownfield site, in addition to, of course, vehicles being parked on that property over a number of years, the agricultural use next door. All those factors can play into making redevelopment of the property a little bit more cumbersome. An abandoned school building, essentially any building built before 1978 has the potential to be a brownfield, simply based on the fact that there's probably lead-based paint somewhere in that building. And you can see kind of a disaster in the basement there. Asbestos, lead pipes, who knows what else. And this is an industrial site. Nowadays, of course, when an industry goes out of business, they have certain cleanup standards that they have to meet, but You know, in a lot of our communities that were developed, you know, back in the 50s, 40s, you're going to have sites that were simply abandoned, and we don't know now what's actually in that ground, and that's what makes them more problematic. And this is what I've always thought of as a brownfield. It's an abandoned gas station. Again, hard to maybe reuse because you don't know what's in that soil, even if the fuel tanks were taken out. Who knows if they leaked? All the leakage and whatnot that took place over the years with vehicles being parked on that property. But I think we can probably all picture one or two of those in our communities across the state. So, and then a vacant lot. And again, simply because who knows 50 years ago what may have been dumped on that site, what's contiguous to that site. So the point is you've got them everywhere, not to scare you, but you know that they can hold back redevelopment. But the good news is that there are a lot of resources available to help you in your development process. So again, in 2002, there was federal legislation that was passed specifically related to brownfields, and it provides liability protection, and it also provides funding. So the brownfield redevelopment process is a simple 4-step process. Just kidding, it's really not that simple, but Kansas State, through their work across the region, has found that there really are 4 steps, and they seem fairly obvious, but pretty defined ways of successfully redeveloping that process. Obviously, the first one is identifying your brownfields and setting your redevelopment goals. And they actually have a database, and there are some sheets on the tables there where you can actually log information about your site. If you've got a number of sites, you can prioritize which ones are important. And it's a really great way to kind of have that information available, and you can password protect it and share it with other people as you move through the redevelopment process. So once you've identified and set your redevelopment goals and figured out kind of what the environmental unknowns are, what the status is with the current owner, and recorded information about what you could potentially use that site for, you move on to, here's just a quick pic of the database. You move on to setting your redevelopment goals, and as you know, it takes the community support to have a successful project. So that's another piece too that the Technical Assistance to Brownfields program can help with. They can come in and actually do some visioning for the community. In fact, I believe they're actually going to be in the region next month helping a community that's kind of gone through a hard time with one of their facilities and figuring out what to do with that facility and culling together the resources to look at what the future for that site will be. So again, setting goals, making plans to achieve them, and of course, revising your plan along the way, because we all know nothing goes according completely to plan. So once you've got your goals in place, you can begin to look for funding. And the EPA, again, is a great resource, as well as the state resources that will be talked about shortly. But the Technical Assistance Program also has what's called an EASY grant writing tool. Again, the EASY, it's an EPA grant, so it's not going to be that easy. But the grant writing tool does set up the structure to make it pretty easy to input the information and answer the questions that those EPA grant reviewers are going to be looking for to make it successful. So you've got resources readily available. You're not starting from scratch, and you can learn from others' experiences as you go along. So moving to part 2. Once you've identified your sites, you're doing your investigations, and these are phase 1 and phase 2. You've probably heard these terms. Phase 1 is sort of that higher level, looking at the background information, what you know about the sites, what you know about the adjacent sites. And then phase 2 is actually getting in there and taking your soil samples and determining what sort of cleanup you need to do based on what you think you might be using that site for in the future. Okay, see a pretty picture of somebody doing a sample boring. And brownfields cleanup, again, is based on what the use will be. Residential obviously has higher cleanup standards than perhaps an industrial site would be. And the other piece of it is preventing future exposure from any contaminants that are in that site. And then finally, the last and oh so easy step is actually redeveloping and finding your partners and what businesses or entities you're planning to bring in or hoping to bring in to fit your master plan and your smart growth. Whatever sorts of overarching plans that you have. And again, you know, they've really found at KSU that the importance of community involvement, it seems, again, it's pretty obvious. Elected officials, you know, city managers, you guys all know how important it is to have a community behind you, whether it's And there are any number of different ways that you can do it. Probably the pub crawl type concept would be really helpful. All right, moving on to where the money is. There are local, state, and federal funds available. For the phase 1 and phase 2 site assessments, those can actually be funded through the state, and you can have the state actually come in and Meredith will talk, or actually Sean will talk more about that, sorry. In cleanup funds, there are funds through deed in the EPA. Redevelopment, there are actually lots of different pots of money available depending on what sort of redevelopment you're looking at or what location you're looking at. And then, of course, the technical assistance through Kansas State University. And what they mean by technical assistance is anything from assisting with the visioning process to actually figuring out how to go about hiring contractors, what sort of questions to ask, what not to ask, what sort of information you really need to find the best person or the best organization to assist you through the process. All right, so the federal EPA grants, the biggest pot of money are art grants, and those funds can be used for assessment. There's a revolving loan fund, and there are cleanup funds available. The targeted brownfields assessments, if you've got a specific site that you want to redevelop, you would actually probably want to use those funds, and those are available at any time as long as there are funds available for federal funding. The art grants, as it mentions, the proposals are due in the fall. And then technical assistance, again, is available at any time. And there are a couple of folks listed way at the bottom who are EPA resources. Normally they're part of this presentation, but we're trying to sort of condense it, so I apologize for going kind of fast through this. But they are usually available and they're very accessible too if you have any questions. So, all right. EPA resources, a large number of folks can apply. The important thing is to remember is that you can apply. These just highlight the pots of money that are available, and it's basically anywhere from $200,000, and that slide isn't quite correct. It's not 600,000 million. I don't even know what that is, but up to $600,000 for a coalition. So we're looking at pretty big pots of money that are available to help you get started with assessing and cleaning up the properties. Slide through some of these. These are just specifics on the different programs. These slides, again, are available, I believe, on the Coalition's website, and then they're also available on the TAB program's website through KSU. So. Job training grants. These are if you're able to attract or trying to attract a business that is particularly focused on environmental issues. There are job training grants to help attract those businesses to your brownfield redevelopment. And then we wanted to mention too the USDA Rural Development Funds, particularly because I'm imagining most of your communities are 50,000 and under, and so you've got a special pot of money that you can actually tap into for a variety of different uses, everything from planning to the cleanup to redevelopment, and it can actually even be used, as you can see at the bottom, for installation of amenities to enhance the development. So a pretty broad use to fit your project. All right, and then this again, say free. The TAB assistance to communities, again, can be used for identifying your sites and redeveloping the plan, doing the cleanup, and then providing redevelopment assistance in terms of finding the right contractors and even helping you to find the funding. So the final thing I want to mention is that this is a real cursory and very introductory and quick overview of what brownfield redevelopment is, but we actually host workshops to help communities actually put together their EPA grant, and we are hosting one on August 12th in St. Cloud, and that will be an all-day session. It sounds very lengthy, but it will really help communities understand what needs to go into that EPA grant, because they're highly competitive, and Minnesota unfortunately has not done well in the last couple of funding cycles. So we're hoping now that by starting up these grant writing workshops that we'll really be able to help communities understand what needs to go into that grant, and that we'll be successful in the next round. So if you have interest, you can sign up through Kansas State University's website, or you can show you there are contact either of these folks, and we'll make sure that we get you to the right spot. So, and Martha Faust, again, who's not here today, is the executive director, and Blaise Levin is the contact at TAB, and he's an excellent resource if you have any questions on what to do with what you think might be a potential brownfield in your community that you're just not sure what to do with. So I'm happy to take questions, otherwise we can simply move on to the people with the money, which is far more interesting. And then the beer after that.
When you talk about in the fall, or it says in there in the fall,
Yeah.
when you apply for work, what should a person expect for like a typical single lot that had a gas station? What would be the timeline?
You know, for a project like that, I would probably actually look at the other source of funding, which are the targeted assessment grants. The EPA grants are kind of the larger community vision, but if you've just got one site, you might want to try accessing the more specific.
Actually, I think I probably speak for every representative in here that we all have abandoned gas stations in now, or dry cleaners or something like that
Right.
that are hindering redevelopment. And my question would be is, if you do not have somebody that's ready to acquire the property and make use of it, but you want to have a clear, ready-to-go site, can an entity get funding for getting the site prepped, ready to go? Because when businesses are looking to build or relocate, they don't want to go through a year or 2 year long process to get to it.
Exactly. Yeah, and I apologize for not emphasizing that more. That's really what the idea of all these pots of money are for, is that they understand that until that's cleaned up, nobody's going to purchase that. They don't want to take on the liability of what might be in that site. So yeah, absolutely the EPA funds are available for that, but there are also, I think, other sources of funding at the state level to assist with that. Yeah, because cleaning that up so that you can bring in somebody else is absolutely key. Yep, good question, thank you. All right, Sean.